response to interrogation or something like that, or evidence in support of fact. And then the other problem is my notes are completely missing. I'm going totally rogue here. I have nothing to go by. So this is always a problem. So anyway, I want to just chat with you today about what decisions that you make in your life will lead to the team that you join that will be so important, not today, not tomorrow, but it could be 26 years later. How important what you do now and the connections you make and the decisions you make will change your life forever. So for those of you who were at conference a couple of years ago, I shared some of my story of my younger years, my growing up, my problems with my family, my being disowned. In 1994, I made the really hard decision to leave my 17-year marriage, and at much cost to me personally, because my mother and my family disowned me for 4 years, and we know that story ended okay, but it was a really rough time in my life. And the reason I came to Pampered Chef was really to find a new identity, an anonymous identity where people didn't know my past and could take a fresh look at who I was. And I needed friends, and I needed family, and I needed connections. So Pampered Chef gave that to me very well throughout the years. And you know, we all go through things, but who is your team that you have to support you in the tough times and in the good times? And in all these years, I've had children get married, I've had grandchildren, I've lost parents, and I will tell you that the people that were there are my Pampered Chef team. They are the best people, and they will always be the best people. We have something that people wish for and pray for every single day of their life. We have it, and we just don't share it. If you haven't had the best time in the last 2 days, you didn't drink enough alcohol. I don't know what, we could have had a good time, but But I want to jump ahead to 2020, because another saga of my life started in about 2020. In 2020, we made the decision to travel to Paris in March with the executive trip. And it turned out to be somewhat of a foretelling of what would happen in the future. My husband contracted COVID when we were there in Paris. As you recall, the Paris trip, the executive trip, was just as the world was shutting down, and we barely got out of Paris. We were on one of the last planes out, and we came home, and his health was not quite good, but no one knew what COVID was, really. His symptoms were not the usual. So we know that something happened about then. And in April, I just gotten back, in April, we decided to go for National Executive Director and join the team that I so wanted to join forever. I mean, if you don't want to be a national executive, come talk to one of us, because there is no club, no team that's better. And so I was 64 years old trying to make this goal, and no one, 62, 63, at this point it doesn't matter anymore, it's all. But, you know, I was one of the oldest people ever to go for national executive, the oldest, right? So anyway, April, May, and June were our months. If you don't know it, you have to make it 3 months in a row. 1 month is tough, 2 is horrible, 3 is almost impossible. And on April 6th, my mom went into the hospital for an emergency. She had a little heart issue, and she contracted COVID in April of 2020. And every of those 3 months that I was fighting for national, she was fighting for her life. And on June 23rd, she lost her fight just as I was winning mine. And so we went from, working as a team. So shout out to all of my directors that are here, Stephanie, Candace, Karen, Sue, Bridget, Sarah. In 2020, a funeral was almost impossible to plan. No one would have us. The church wouldn't have us. So we found a hall, and I needed people to make desserts and help me serve food because the caterer would not serve it. And who stepped in was my director team. 17 of them came and served and made food and helped me get through. So thank you to my leadership for that. But when you talk about who's on your team, these people came in fear of their life because it was so scary, and they did. So 2020 was both filled with joy and absolute and very difficult times. So when we came into 2022, I thought, okay, we're going to go to Puerto Rico. How great is this? Now, my husband's health had not been great since COVID, but we didn't know what had happened. But at some point, he had had a widowmaker heart attack, which nobody survives, especially without medical care. And he survived it, we found out. And then he had 2 strokes. And so he was blinded in one eye, and he recovered, but our life was never going to be the same, most likely. And so he didn't go with me to Prague. My son did, but he felt good enough to go to Puerto Rico. He thought we could make it, and his doctor had said, oh, you're in great shape, you've lost 30 pounds, go enjoy, which is what we did. So another decision that shaped my future was my daughter and daughter-in-law both joined my team in 2020. So our trip to Puerto Rico was Jim and me, my daughter and her husband, my daughter-in-law and my son. It's going to be a party of 6. It's going to be an amazing trip. We were so excited. And we took off, and we landed in beautiful Puerto Rico. Camper Jeff planned the most amazing trip. So the decision we had made was to go in a day early. We were not supposed to be there on that Wednesday. Our trip started the next day, but we decided to go in early. And there's only one reason you go in early to a trip. It's to see your friends. It's to get there and see the friends who are leaving and have that time together. There was no other reason why we decided to go in that day. There was a reason. Someone divine had planned for us to be there. So we landed, and we're greeted by home office. It was fabulous. Nevada, Jane, everybody was there. And we landed at about 2, and by about 4 o'clock, we decided we'd have a light lunch. And at 5 o'clock, Jim went back to the room, and I went to the pool, because what did I want to do? See all my friends. And so I spent wonderful afternoons catching up with everybody, because we had not seen each other either. COVID had been raging for 2 years, so this was a family reunion. And so when I returned to the room at about 8:02, I'll never forget the time, at 8:02, I came to the room and I knew something was horribly wrong. And I found him on the bed and he was gone. And so we'd been in paradise for 5 hours, and it was apparent that this was not going to end well. So what do you do in a panic attack, panic situation like that? I immediately called the front desk, and that was no help at all. You know that in Puerto Rico there is no 911, there are no defibrillators, there is no help. You are on your own. And so I called my daughter, who didn't even know what room we were in, because we had just gotten there. So she ran screaming through the resort, calling my name, trying to find me. And who answered the call? Camper Chuff consultants, 3 of them. One was an EMT, one was married to a firefighter, and they came to the room and helped me perform CPR while the security guard watched. There just was nothing to be done. And so the people that surrounded me and helped me were not the people you would expect. They were Pampered Chef people. And while this was all going on, Andrew was on a kayak trip. Nevada was in her room. Kathy Cocazella was there. And Andrew came from his kayak ride, and they were all outside the room the whole evening, holding vigil, trying to help, seeing what they could do. I challenge you to find any kind of company that you would find that kind of support. As a matter of fact, they flew my other daughter down to Puerto Rico to be with me, because the intent was to stay there until I could bring him home. And that didn't quite work either, because Puerto Rico speaks Spanish, I speak English, and so you're trying to get a death certificate and all this kind of crazy stuff. So I tell you all of this because in times of good times and in times of tragedy, and this was the utmost tragedy, because, I had given up a life with my first husband and found the love of my life. And I really thought we had more time. So I want you to really, really think about your loved ones and your spouse And the things that I joked about, you know I have a pretty witty, sharp sense of humor. And he was not always spoken of in the most revered way.
His underwear, watching the Weather
And
Channel.
but the things that I joked about and the things that I teased him about are the things I miss most. I freaking don't know what to wear any day because he was my weatherman. He told me every day what the weather would be, every single day. I have no idea where the wind is coming from, how many boats are out on the water, what politics are. I'm like a mushroom. I just live in the dark and they feed me crap. I don't know what's going on. That's the daily things are what I miss the most. But I will tell you this, when I came home from Puerto Rico without him, our party of 6 had turned into a party of 5. And I had COVID. That was my parting gift from Puerto Rico. I was so sick and so lost. And I will tell you that every day, my friends in Pampered Chef called just to make sure I was okay. Sent food. I had a stack of cards this high, and I will tell you 90%, probably even more, were Pampered Chef people I'd never even met that were calling and messaging me. But Karen Josephus, Paula Brassford, Jill, Sharon, Tracy, Claudia, Donna, Jenny, Dee, Julie, all of these people were the ones that held me up and kept me going until I could see my way through. And I thought that maybe I would quit Pampered Chef. In those dark days, I really thought, what am I going to do now? And I finally came to the realization that I had already lost my biggest love. My family was still there, and my third biggest love was Pampered Chef. Why in the world would I give it up? I'm on a team that supports me and lets me be me. And that's something that you can't find anywhere else. You guys love me because I'm who I am. And quirky and weird as I am, you will let me be me, right? Thank you. Sally's real moment. Thank you guys. So, just to wrap this up, I just want to tell you that the company we have, the company we keep, the decisions we make, the team we join, the team we nurture will all play out. Because I went to Puerto Rico early, my team was there. If I had not, what happened was going to happen whether we were there at home. I would have been all by myself. And so to know that God had taken care of me in that way brings me great comfort, and you all helped in the darkest days of my life. You've been there. So I want to thank you all so much. Thank you, Home Office, and you guys enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks so much.